Good evening, and welcome to the show. This is the First Amendment, historically speaking, and I will be your host. My name is Frederick Douglass Dixon. As always, and never underestimated, I'd like to thank the staff. First of all, I'd like to thank UPTV and their incredible staff for allowing us to come weekly into your thoughts and hopefully forward something that will spark, through esoteric information, spark a thought that will indeed change your household, change your community, and change our society. I'd like to thank specifically Daniel. Daniel's a great young man, and I appreciate all of his help. So today I would like to talk about something that may seem so very radical to the viewer that you don't understand its importance. So when we talk about blacks in America, blacks in the world, and what our major problems are, we understand the problem of unification is something that we're still chasing. The problem of us having love for one another is tied directly into our ability not to unify. And I want to talk about some of those populations, more specifically, just a few of our populations who indeed are part of the problem and not part of the solution. So I want to speak to you about our professional black bourgeois class and the effects that it is having on our future generation and why some of the things that we see on TV and how they're tied into them. When we begin to talk about our most professional class, we talk about our learned, those who have been formally educated. And within that thought, what position do they play in our current situation, being at the mud of the totem pole of society? How do we have a group within our group who separated themselves by formal education to not seem to be a part of the masses and, in their own minds, not part of the problem? As we delve into this, I want you to keep this in mind, that lots of groups say we should not air our dirty laundry in public. Well, it's gotten to the point where we're in such a bad condition that those who are responsible and play key parts in that particular thought have to be talked to in a manner that is just not happening because of material culture. So today, the idea of a punishment and a consequence that will come if our behavior does not change will lead our theme today. So indeed, we have a very small time to get right to it. So a wise man once said, and we're going to quote this wise man on more than one occasion today, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. He said, if we take it to his words very clearly, he said, before God punishes, he sends a warner. I don't claim to be your warner, but what I have today will definitely tie into your warning. So when we talk about specifically the black bourgeois professional population, you're talking about perhaps the most confused group of people on the planet. They have been formally educated to look to themselves as separate from the masses of blacks. Very unique thought. How do you get to that particular point? Now we're going to talk about two specific colloquial terms, the hypocrite and the stool pigeon. Yes, indeed, we are going to talk about that black professional bourgeois population, the hypocrite and the stool pigeon. Now, we need to become very attuned to functional definitions that will drive and undergird the thoughts as we go after this particular population. It says here, the hypocrites. In time, he said that they will believe, that he goes back and says that they're disbelievers. So at one time, the hypocrite says, indeed, they are believers. And in that same vein, they turn very swiftly and say they do not believe. The great arch deceiver of the entire black race in America is the hypocrite. Where do we find the hypocrites? We find those hypocrites who have paved the way, those who have been giving opportunities that have not been given to the masses of us as far as education, as far as the job market, as far as being so-called leaders. They have stood up. But what have they stood up for? They have stood up as linchpins to continue domination of our open enemy. So he says, in trying to deceive others, he deceives himself. So you have to have an air of an illusion of inclusion to a population that is above your current population to even be looked to as one who's included in a higher population. So we are indeed talking about the formally educated class of blacks. We're talking about our professors, we're talking about our lawyers, we're talking about our doctors, we're talking about our administrators. Those who have, over the years, been blessed enough to receive what they call a quality education, but never pay attention to those who came before them, as if they pulled this feat off themselves and now to them go the praise. Be very careful when you talk about the hypocrite, because here, with the hypocrite, they do, in this particular population, possesses a very serious skill level that must be tapped into properly for the raising of the masses of the black man, woman, and child. So it's a very complex situation where we have to make sure that we're holding that particular group accountable. But we have to be able to use what it is that they've already achieved through what it is they thought was important to benefit the masses who they left behind. The hypocrites are happy looking in their imposed, darkened mind against the truth of their own salvation. So you won't find the hypocrite. You won't find that professional bourgeois population, that professor, that particular lawyer, that particular doctor to point the finger at white domination or white supremacy as the problem. They will point back through their research as blacks being the problem. So as long as you research blacks being the problem and not those who put blacks in that situation, the problem, then you will continue to curry favor from your open enemy. Yes, this is serious and stern talk. Again, I am not your warner, but these words come directly from your warner. And God always sends a warner before he's punished. So when we look at the hypocrites, what do they have to gain by being hypocritical? Well, what they have to gain is material culture. The idea of the house, the idea of the car, the idea of the house, the car, the wife, the children going to private schools on the backside of the masses of blacks being denied those same particular material goods. How do we explain this? We explain this by I learned hate, going back to that population being the most confused population that we have seen until today. How do we explain to our future generations that you are left behind for a Lincoln, a Cadillac, or a Mercedes-Benz? Because it breaks down that simple. There's this illusion that we will tie to middle-class America with a springboard to a higher class by things that we can acquire and not things that we can just acquire. The more that we acquire, the more that we hoard, the more that it seems that we have been successful in our trot through life. When all actuality, with this formerly bourgeois, petty bourgeois black population, all you have done is reinforced the idea of creating cleavage between those who have not been able to receive these minor middle class rewards as symbolically representation of what you think is important. Now, lots of people will say, well, that's divisive. That kind of rhetoric, we've heard it before. It only allows us, well, it doesn't allow us to unify. Well, look at our situation. Our young population is in such a dire straits because of what we have not provided them and what we continue to leave to be unnecessary as we talk to them. As long as we can provide them, the first black to be the president of IBM, the first black to be the president of so many publications, the first black to do this, the first black to do that. Yes, we understand your brilliance, but it's just being used in the wrong way. And how it's being used is to reinforce the masses of our situation. So you have to be talked to just like this. It has to be no sugar coated. It cannot be milk toast that we speak to you while we have this small time. So when we talk about the hypocrite, they are indeed walking future generations into a house that is burning on fire. Well, I ask this from all our formally educated, the most successful. We've been taught and taught by a step parent because indeed we have been removed from the thought of our original parents. So now we have a step parent who has taught us things and operations and avenues that have been diametrically opposed to our well-being. So the old folks say all the time, when you act out or when you act in other than a manner that you've been taught, what has gotten into you? Well, quite specifically, the ideas, the morals, the values, the paradigms of your open enemy are now running through your veins, where you pass them on to future generations as if they are allowed to not be discussed once you continue to pull them off. So we shouldn't discuss the idea of what it is that you do on a daily basis. So nepotism amongst our groups. We have nepotism amongst ourselves that is raging, multiplying, and festering. And it leaves so many of us destitute mentally that we can't look to you because I'm not from the same fraternity or sorority that you belong to. I can't look for a favor. And then we talk about the areas of our population that have minor positions of authority over those means that will enlighten us when we think about cultural centers, when we think about museums, when we think about our teachers. These are the stalwarts of raising the intellect, raising the awareness of the masses of blacks. And we find that those who are in position of authority over these avenues are in concert with our open enemy for a salary of $100,000. When we have been taught to whatever salary we have, if the salary is $100,000, we spend $103,000 in that year trying to keep up with that formally educated bourgeois population. That is indeed against the idea of you being successful. So how do we look to this particular population and extract what's the best from them and leave what's the rest in them? Keep the meat, spit the bones out from this population where they are so confused again about what's important. No idea of how to sacrifice for somebody that you'll never meet. Yes, we sacrifice for those in our family. We sacrifice for those that we know. We sacrifice for those who are in the same groups, clubs, organizations, churches, mosques, and things of that nature. Yes, you'll look out for your brother then. You'll look out for your sister then. But how about one that wouldn't have the ability to say thank you for that particular blessing? To say, well, I don't know how to say thank you because I've never been taught to say thank you. How about those who will be totally disrespectful of the blessing that you're attempting to forward to them? That ties into our learned self-hate. So instead of worrying about what they will do with the blessing, make sure they receive the blessing. So we can't look to a confused population to lead us anywhere other than confusion. So when we explain that our dirty laundry consists of a group of people who indeed are in love with their open enemy and will do anything just for a position, to curry favor, for a small reward, a trinket, then we're talking seriously now. How do we change that? Then we hold them accountable. We hold them accountable for what they do. Your hiring practices. When you know for a fact that someone can come into your position, your center, your outlet, your museum, your classroom, and really make a difference in the lives of future generations. And your job consists of you making sure that that person, that group, those individuals will never have full access to the same group they're sent to serve. And you can prove it by their service, by their respect, by their ability to sacrifice fully for future generations. We find those in positions will do anything to keep those people away from the exact population that is in such a at-risk position. Yes, it happens every day. We watch it. It would be, well, a wise man said, it takes several conspirators for a crucifixion. We are indeed crucifying our next generation with our material want, with the way that we speak to them, with the way that we have labeled them as the worst generation that we have produced. In fact, it's the exact opposite. These are the most stringent warriors that we have produced, and that's why they are feeling the way that you've talked to them over these years, and the disrespect is mounting. They no longer listen to Reverend Jesse Jackson. He can't go in front of this group. They're tired of his bootlicking, his cottonmouth ways. Al Sharpton is being called down as an FBI agent, one who has worn a wire. Yes, the time is up. Your jig is up. And for those of you all who are creating future generations who will pass along this baton of confusion, your time is up as well. We will no longer allow you, for your personal gain, for your ability to leave a half-cocked illusion of legacy behind and run amok through black folks in general. It won't happen anymore. Be careful of the hypocrite who remains under disguise and that one who says that they're a believer. Now, we want to move right along to the stool pigeon, the one who is willing to tell, the one who is willing to wear a wire, not a wire per se like you see on this particular tie, but that one who will indeed go directly back and tell all of the plans of our ability to gather, our ability to make sure that future generations will be taken care of properly. Yes, we have a few other terms that we can use for them. Betrayer, fink, informant, narc, snitch. And I don't mean what you guys talk about in the streets when you say no snitching. No, we're talking about the people who have positions of authority. We have those people who look down on people who look just like them unless you have a PhD, unless you have a master's degree, unless you studied so many philosophical differences and not admit once the idea of philosophy started in Africa. But you look to Greeks as those who have given you thought and you've run with it, and now this is what separates you because you can regurgitate something that Plato said. But you won't research the idea that Plato spent 13 years at the feet of Egyptian professors learning from the ideas of antiquity. So you'll teach certain parts of it and you pat yourself on the back. Literally, you'll break your arm patting yourself on the back and say absolutely nothing that changes the instruction and changes the idea of your home, the idea of our society, and the idea of civilization as we will know it. So, the hypocrite being the double crosser, the stool pigeon being the means for them to double cross. There are several of you right now that I'm talking to, and no matter how uncomfortable you feeling, for the next couple of minutes, you still got to deal with it. Because I'm very serious about allowing future generations to see you for what you are, not for what you portray. Not for the doctor title, not for the PhD title, not for the MA title, not for the BA title. Because if you add all that up, sometimes it adds up to BS. So you have a BS degree. Yes, you do. You have a BS degree. You got more than one. You got one from a formal education and you got one from your household. And now you wish to use this to separate yourself from the masses of us, and you want us to look to you as a leader. Well, absolutely not. But your brilliance has to be used to raise the awareness of the masses of those who are under the idea of oppression. And you, in your formally educated state, have yet to question what it was you were taught? And you think just the words of Dr. Carter G. Woodson, when he wrote in 1933, The Miseducation of the Negro, oh, he got it right. We no longer have to use the word Negro today, but you act like Negroes. And the way that you stick up for your open enemy and your open oppressor with your artificial glibness and your love for that particular group, that's an old Negro thought from an old Negro mind. And I say unequivocally, Negro, please. You understand what it is that you're doing. You understand when you go home after you have shuffled and you've danced with no music, scratched with no itch. You are what they call one that is a shadow and not an image, an echo and not a voice. And we realize that you've died so many times in this process. And they say, a soldier, well, let's talk about one that comes on the opposite end of the soldier. A coward dies 1,000 deaths. A soldier, just once. Now, what are you? And we look at black leadership. And the most honorable Willie Dixon Jr. said it in 1993. Will black leadership please bend over? Indeed, our black leadership, at best, is compromising by their training. This sounds so far out of the box that I can't really listen to him. I don't blame you because I'm talking directly to you. I'm talking to your teeth. I'm telling you that you will no longer be able to pull this off without being exposed. Your time is ticking. You can, for whatever reason that you like, the professional population, you can continue to curry favor with your open enemy. Yes, that is your choice. But there's no longer time for you to do it without being exposed. How long will you be able to withstand your own hypocrisy and justify it through what it is that you can buy, through who you know in the media, as you play the most integral part in our continued domination? I say to you clearly that as we move forward, our younger generation just is not going any longer to listen to Reverend Lowdown and Deacon No Good. They've had enough of that. And they've had enough of your professorial glibness, where they no longer want to be a part of the church, nor do they want to be a part of what's going on in school. They are far stronger and wiser than we will ever be able to understand, because we are not in the process of teaching them correctly, so they're learning, and it seems like they're getting it right. How do you continue as a professional to go to work and have to take some of the abuse that you have to take on a regular basis for a monetary check, for a monetary upliftment that comes once a month, twice a month, on the 15th and the 31st, however you receive your wages? Every time you don't stick up for future generations, you're dying another death. It's just like the idea of the first time a person takes a drink. It tastes so bitter that they have to put it down. And then they drink so much to the point where they regurgitate and they throw up. Oh, that's a sign. That happens when you drink a little too much. But as you continue to drink, it tastes just a little bit better. You learn not to throw up. You learn what to drink. You learn when to drink it. You learn not to mix drinks. So you become savvy at the idea of how to control alcohol and but never understanding what it does to you. So again, this is indeed the words of a warning, not the words of a warner. I won't let you charge me with being divisive, but I will continue to come before you and give you the unadulterated truth. Now you can take it or leave it alone, but I welcome you to challenge me. And any word that I've said thus far while I've been here, on this particular show that does not connect to truth, then charge me accordingly. But charge me as your brother who's attempting to sacrifice what it is that I will get my hands on as far as material culture because I've been taught better. It's not the car that makes the man, it's the man that makes the car. And we still have no connection that our engineers are continuing to work for Ford, Porsche, Cadillac, and we've yet to produce anything on our own. Please understand that these conversations must happen. And airing our dirty laundry in public may put you on notice. But we are watching. And we do understand who you are. Now today is not the proper day for us to go any further as being personal or making this individualistically poignant. We're talking an overview. But very soon, I will come back and I will call names. It won't be long now. So again, this is a warning. And for those who we know are in these positions of authority, those who are the linchpins to continued domination, oh yes, this is a general warning. But very soon, I am coming to expose you. You know who you are? You're feeling a tad bit uncomfortable now? Well, it's only going to get worse because I'm very serious about making sure the future generations know exactly what you've done, not what you did to get your job. We want to pay more attention to what you'll do to keep your job. Will you kill another person who's much younger than I, who looks just like I am, to kill their aspirations and inspirations for your ability to say I am the director, to say I am the president, to say I am the CEO? And for that, we all suffer. But let me explain to you. When you're in that position of authority, you will suffer more. You may not suffer directly, but your children's grandchildren will suffer behind what you do today. I know this is rough talk, but we are in such a bad condition that I just took the time to make sure it was said, documented, and hopefully said correctly and well from an unapologetic person who cares about future generations without question. So I say again, to you bootlicking Uncle Tom, Cottonmouths, you've been put on warning. Yes, we have told you, and pretty soon we're coming to get you. Ladies and gentlemen, this information may in no means change your mind, but because truth and you are so very important to me, I just thought you ought to know. I remain with esteem and respect a distinguished man of color, Frederick Douglass Dixon, willing to give my life